At 7:05. Can you please call roll?
Miss Ashley?
Here.
Mr. Bricker?
Here.
Miss Cunningham?
Here.
Mr. Dalton?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here.
Mr. Rush?
Here.
Miss Thompson?
Here.
Miss McWhinney? Here. Councilman Browning?
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Hibinger?
Here.
And Chairwoman Lash.
Here. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from August 15th? And just as a reminder, as long as you read them, you can approve them. A motion to approve?
So moved.
I second.
Okay, can you take roll, please?
Miss Ashley, I didn't explain to you, so you can say yes, no, or you can abstain.
Okay.
Since you weren't at the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to say your name again.
Okay.
Miss Ashley?
Yes.
Mr. Bricker?
Yes.
Miss Cunningham?
Yes.
Mr. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Miss Thompson?
Yes.
Miss McWhinney?
Yes.
Councilman Browning?
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Hibinger?
Yes.
Chairwoman Lash.
Yes. So before we move on to public comments, we do just want to introduce our new member, Caitlin Ashley. If you want to just say hello and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Ashley. I'm a student at Hayes High School, and I'm now a member of the Park and Rec Board.
Welcome. Welcome. So then we'll move on to public comments regarding the pickleball courts. If somebody wants to come up front and introduce yourself, who's presenting? And if you can just say your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Dawn Brown, 143 Diverston Way, Delaware, Ohio. Okay. All right. We're here to discuss the proposal that we submitted for additional courts as well as the resurface of blue limestone courts. In 2015, a proposal was submitted to the board to convert 2 existing tennis courts to 6 pickleball courts at Mingle Park. At that time, it was estimated about 100,000 active pickleball players. And in I think at that time, the Parks and Rec went ahead and converted a basketball court that was at the blue limestone area into 2 pickleball courts. And these are wonderful courts. The only issue is that we've kind of outgrown them. The surfaces, because it was a basketball court, it's asphalt with paint on them, which makes the ball, it's not conducive for the pickleball, which usually uses the tennis court surfaces. As of 2016, the Sports Fitness Industry Association estimated that there's over 2.5 million active pickleball players. And with the blue limestone court, it currently will accommodate 8 players at one time. And there's been many days and evenings, or I think they play in the morning and also in the evening, that we have an excess of players standing around. And we want to grow the sport here in Delaware. So this is why we sat with the group and kind of came up with several options and how we could actually add courts and or reconstruct. So on page 2 of the proposal, we listed 4 options. The first option was to add lights for evening play, reposition and resurface and modify the 2 existing courts at Blue Limestone Park. And when I say about reposition, they're set up east to west, sunrise, sunset, sun all the time. If we did reposition north to south, then we could actually fit in additional 2 courts because the pickleball courts are not as big. They're half the size of tennis courts. Option 2 would be to add lights and resurface the current pickleball courts at Blue Limestone. Option 3, this is where we get into maybe just instead of constructing and adding on, which is costly, we look at modifying some tennis courts. So if we modify, for example, if we modify 2 tennis courts at Smith Park and paint pickleball lines on there, that will give us additional 6 pickleball courts to utilize with our own nets. We bring our own nets, our own equipment. Now at Smith Park, they don't have lighting, and also the wind is an issue, so possible wind nets and so forth. Option 4, we go right back to Mingle Park. Mingle Park modified 2 of the tennis courts, paint the pickleball lines on there, gives us 6 pickleball courts once again. It has lights, it has the correct surface, and it has additional parking. Because Blue Limestone limits parking where we've had so many people that they park in the grass and the police have come through and said, gotta move your cars. As far as the activity here in Delaware, on the last page, we kind of documented a little of the times that I know that there are courts of folks joining and going along. We also have a Facebook group called Blue Limestone Pickleball. The proposal says 80, but today I checked, we have 87 members. So people are joining our group. They want to know what times we're playing. They want to know beginner stuff. We don't have enough courts to teach. And some of us have talked about even the younger groups. I know some groups that are into pickleball from, local areas from Marion and all that. They are teaching the younger population. I know it's in the schools. Kids know what pickleball is, but the big thing is if we put in additional pickleball courts so people can access it here in Delaware. I drive to Worthington. Olentangy Park has taken 2 courts and put in 6 pickleball painted lines. Folks from around that area bring their own nets. There's times that we're there with 30 people. People are coming in. What we're missing here in Delaware, we need to pull them back here so we can get the revenue from the restaurants and businesses here. Because I spend my money up there, I drive up there. So that's what I'm looking for. And then also with pickleball, what's huge is tournaments. There's a few of us here participated in the tournament in Mount Vernon at the end of September and October 1st. We took our money to the city of Mount Vernon and played in the tournament there. They brought in 104 people to participate on Saturday and Sunday. And they had 4 pickleball courts. And it was organized, that was the 2nd annual. I went to the organizer and I asked, after the cost of setting up the tournament, what do you do with the extra money? And he said they have an agreement with the city that goes back into the city and Parks and Rec, and they resurface or add anything to the courts. So we need to look at as Delaware, let's pull the people from Worthington that have been up here looking for additional court. We had folks here Monday from Mount Vernon. I've had them from Groveport that are coming in tomorrow. Got people from Toledo. We've got, Mount Mentor, everywhere. So tournaments are hosted not just in Florida. It's hosted here in Columbus, hosts the tournament, Middletown, Toledo. Let's tap into it. So like I say, why not Delaware? So.
Well, thank you for that. That was, I have to point out that it's appreciated. It was a very detailed proposal. I don't think you missed anything. And for those of us that were here a couple years ago when we first went through this and resurfaced some of that, it's exciting to see how much it's grown. But I'll open it up to see if you guys have questions for the group regarding pickleball, and then Ted to talk about next steps.
So you're talking about blended lines
Correct.
so that the tennis courts will still be utilized as
Yes.
tennis courts.
Yes.
And I'm very familiar with that as far as the pickleball court lines and the 60-foot court lines for little tennis for younger kids. I believe there's grant money out there to do the blended lines through the United States Tennis Association. They're also doing pickleball lines, and they do the blended lines for the younger kids for tennis. That's something I could possibly investigate.
That would be great. Because if we cannot construct, then let's use what we have. Some of these tennis courts are underutilized. And if we can put 20 people on, we've been down to Blue Limestone. We've been to Mingle Park. We've chalked lines there and just watching the people walk by.
Well, we do our wide tennis program there.
Yeah.
At Mingo, we saw the lines
Yeah.
tape, and I was like, okay, somebody's making pickleball. So.
Well, it generates conversation. Folks come by, they see, and like I said, Mingle's the perfect area because it has the lights. It's not going to cost us anything to paint blended lines in. And you can go down to Olentangy and Wilson Bridge Road, and they took those 6 courts and turned them in. And there's a sign that says pickleball overrules tennis on 6 to 9 on Tuesday and Thursdays. So they actually have taken, which I find interesting because a lot of your smaller counties and stuff are the ones building the tennis or the pickleball courts, and your bigger, like Columbus, we have no pickleball courts. We have blended lines, but no, like Blue Limestone is really nice. It's just that we've outgrown it.
What's the name of the park in Olentangy?
Olentangy Park off of Wilson Bridge Road. It's right there by the bike trail. It starts right by 27 and 315. Most of your parks, you can go to Wolf Park out on Broad Street. They have lines that they've painted on out there.
Westerville Rec is huge.
Yes, yeah. Anybody else know of any? I mean, most of Marysville built too.
Beautiful, yeah, parking with the picnic tables and the awning.
Yeah, those were pickleball specific.
Dublin Rec.
Marion's building 2 specific pickleball courts at the senior center out there. Mount Vernon, who hosted, has gone back to the mayor and applying for a grant to actually build 6 pickleball courts and face them correctly, north-south, and to grow their tournament.
Any other questions? Otherwise, Ted, what would be our next steps? I
A
mean,
couple of questions.
go ahead.
I have a couple questions for you. One, and I'll refer to Dee Dee as the resident tennis expert.
Yeah.
Are there any issues? Do you have any issues? Are there any tennis issues with painting blended lines? I'm assuming no, since you know about them and talk
No,
about
I
them,
mean,
but
they're blended in to the point where they should not be it doesn't disturb anybody else that they're using them for tennis courts. The tennis club where I used to work has the pickleball blended lines and the 60-foot court lines and all the lines, and it's fine. So it shouldn't be a distraction to anybody who would go to play tennis. So,
Right. Good.
and it's not, that's what, they call it blended lines because they try to make it blend in, but yet stand out for whoever's using it for whatever purpose.
Okay. With the building of the new courts, are you looking at still continuing to utilize Blue Limestone, or are you looking to move to a different location, so to speak?
We ideally would like to keep Blue Limestone. I mean, because it sits in that community. It's it's a beautiful area. It's just, if we continue to use it, I'm sure local residents or beginners, I mean, we're looking to start to become more competitive play so we can get into tournaments and pull in the other pickleball players around the local areas.
Sure.
But no, I wouldn't want to, I mean, people still use that, whether they're in this group and trying to, become more competitive.
All right, last question. I was on the 2015 board when we approved it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a fantastic thing to add. When we put those in, it was very sufficient for what was asked for. Obviously, it's growing. So if it's grown that much in 2 years, where we've gone from 2 courts and now we need 8 courts, are the 8 courts that you're looking to build sufficient enough to last you for a while, or do we need to look at something, a different proposal? I mean, I realize it kind of a tough ask, definitely more money if we need to go bigger, but at least looking at it as, instead of continuing to build these short-term fixes, what, dream scenario, I'm sure we'd love to have 20 courts and bring in thousands of players, but realistic dream scenario, what would be sufficient for Delaware's population? I don't know what that answer is, but I'm assuming somebody out there does.
I would say, personally, I would think I agree with you. I don't want to come here and say I want 6 to 8 courts, or the proposal was, let's use what we have, and if we need additional, we can blend lines as far as cost. But if I was given there's my Christmas wish, it would be, let's go 8, because I'm looking at Mount Vernon. In 2 years, they went from asphalt to tennis to the surface on 4 courts. Now they're going 6, going back to their, city and saying we want more, and looking at funding. So if I look at Delaware and where we can pull in and use the Delaware and pull in players throughout, I would say 6 to 8.
Okay, fair enough. I mean,
Yeah.
to your point,
my
there's
point,
all
yeah.
kinds of clubs out there, whether it's the bocce club or
Right.
cycling or whatever it is that continues to come and ask for different things. So I was just curious as to where your group stood, as to what the overall best case scenario, I guess, would be.
Right. And I think if you had more courts, you'd have more people. When, just to go on with yours, when we chopped the lines at Mingo Park, we put out on our Facebook group, and just the email and word of mouth. Hey, we're going to bring our own nets. Let's play. We had 20 people show up. This is at 5:30 at night, knowing that we could use the lights. I mean, we had 20 people, and we didn't even advertise elsewhere, you know, through the Y, through beginners or anything like that. So the interest is there. So I think, and even to just a bit of tidbit information, the U.S. Open for pickleball is held in Naples, and they started with 42. They have 42 pickleball courts. And they had last year, you can register for the tournament, it sells out within 10 minutes, and there's like over 1,000 participants. So they're actually building more and getting bigger and bigger. So I can see the sport really getting bigger and bigger, especially when you look into tournaments and folks of a skill level that wanting to play, they're going to be looking for places to play.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one. Just doing some quick math here. Have you kind of folks ever thought about combining these options 3 and 4? If you combine those options at the higher amount you have approximated, it comes out to $11,000 cost savings, not by doing option 1 altogether. You can take that $11,000 and put towards resurfacing Blue Limestone Park. It eliminates evening play, but you gain 12 courts, option 3 and 4, instead of only getting 2 additional in option 1. You get more courts, maybe some less playing time because you don't have any lights, but you get more courts and you save money by just resurfacing on option 1. I mean, it's just I'm not sure. Has anybody ever thought about combining options and creating an option 5 maybe?
No, we could. I mean, we just basically, when we were brainstorming, we threw in just one, trying to utilize what we have and what was given, because it is a good option. It's just that we need a new surface.
Right.
And just estimating by, not really getting a real bid on anything, we know that's going to be the costly part with lights. At this time, 6 o'clock, most people get off and play pickleball. It's dark already.
Yeah.
Having lights is a benefit because we can still play till November.
Okay.
We can, in a lot of the, so yeah, I mean, we can look at that. I mean, that's not something that is, no go, but.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions from the board? Okay, Ted, next steps.
So if you look for the multi-use courses. The multi-use course would be the ideal situation, as we can have more than one use on there. One of the other questions was, so if they were at Mingo, is it better to have them consolidated, or would you rather see them at different areas around, like Mingo and Smith, separated as much as they are? I know for tournaments, you'd like to see more courts at one location because, as a tournament, but, as the club and everything grows, seeing other courts separated around the city, would that be something that you'd look forward to?
Separate?
Like at different parks, if another
Yeah,
park came up in the south or something, is that something you would favor as additional pickleball courts somewhere else, or would you like to see them all in one location?
Ideally, it would be in one location. I
Okay.
mean, it basically, because most people aren't going to, well, are you going to play here? I'm going to go here. A lot of it is the social aspect too of pickleball. So in getting the same caliber of players, your skill level. So the bigger the group you have, the more the pool you can pick from and play in versus separating folks. I think then there's a disconnect.
Okay. So I guess one of the things to look at is if Mingo is one of the options we look at, we can look at, getting some hard numbers on some resurfacing or, painting those lines in and everything, and looking at that and see how that could, they've already laid it out, so it works in there. So seeing what those costs would be to do something like that. Because I'm assuming your costs are kind of estimates a little bit.
Yeah, they're
Okay, so I guess I would like to get some hard costs, to move forward and see what that actually would cost, and see about doing it.
Is there a way for us also to know the usage between tennis and then pickleball so that we're not having, so we're making sure they're available, because then that sounds like an issue that we could run into.
Dee, you probably can answer that better than
Well,
anybody.
During the summer, we run a Y tennis program 3 days a week. And it usually runs 9 to noon, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And we've now running a fall program. So that's been, yeah, and then, you know, but it's growing. And so the other thing too is we've seen to the point where all 4 courts are packed. You know, especially on the weekends, and you know, people are using them regularly, so they're not that empty anymore. And same, you know, now Smith Park is not as widely used anymore as Mingo is.
Mhm. That's what I was
I just
understanding.
want to
too.
not,
Oh, no, and I hear you. And pickleball, usually when we're gathering for pickleball, it's either gonna be like the weekdays, most of these folks gather and they can speak, but it's usually in the morning, 9, 10, during weekdays, and then usually the after hour people that work, we gather around 6 and go to 9. So, and we have no problem working with, you know, the tennis schedule. I mean, that's the tennis courts, and we're just biding time on them, so we don't have no problem working around schedules. It's not that if we start a group or a club, but that's where we really want to get into, get a bigger group and going, but.
So it sounds like the next steps is that we'll get true estimates.
Yeah, I
looking-
can talk to some contractors and look at getting what those costs would actually be. And then,
And then I assume this would have to go to council, or no?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I think one of the other thing we would do is probably kind of organize with Dee and I think the scheduling is going to be an important factor in this too, to make sure that, you know, we can fit everybody and kind of see how that could be laid out and how that could work. I think that would be another important thing.
I have one other quick question. It's more Jeremy. Do we offer pickleball classes through the Y? Was there ever any discussion about doing that, or any? Okay. Okay.
Ted?
Yep.
Has there been any determination on Ross Street Park and what's going to happen there?
Nope. We actually have a public meeting on Thursday to kind of get some more public input on that. Yeah, and you know, depending on the cost, I guess is where we need to see where we're at, and we can make that decision where if it goes to council or what funds could be used for that.
Okay.
And I know that a couple of the Y classes, especially in the summer, we're using 2 courts. You know, we've got upwards of 8 to 10 kids in those 2 classes also. So.
Okay.
So we'll look at the estimate and then look at the scheduling to see what we could do in
Yeah,
terms of scheduling.
maybe get a proposal that we could
Okay.
work with and see how ever could fit in there.
And
And then also maybe look at what our grants are available and how we could,
There's some grants out there too,
Mhm.
so.
yeah, how we could utilize
I've
those
already-
also.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Any other last questions then?
Thank you.
All right, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the update of the YMCA.
All right. So everyone got the report. Just to point out a few things. We do have the city's Halloween event that's coming up on the 28th, along with the pumpkin run. It's all in one day. So we will be looking for volunteers to help man that and operate that function. The Halloween event's from 4 to 7. Most of the help is needed at the beginning and then at the very end when we're trying to get everything back to its spots, tables, get the trash and stuff out and make sure that we're got the park back in order. So if you'd like to help with that, please let myself or Roger Hannafin know. That way we can get you on the list when we start sending out correspondence as far as what's going on.
Jeremy, what time is the pumpkin run that day?
3,
And it's at Mingo also?
yes.
I just had one quick question on your update. I'm assuming, I'm hoping maybe it was a typo, that it says the superhero party was already sold out. Was that from last year?
Yes,
Okay,
because,
because it's until March.
was this the report?
Yes, it was the one that came in our packet. I thought it said something about the superhero party and it was
It
open
might
to
have been
residents.
the annual
It was,
report, Jimmy.
oh, maybe that's what I was
No,
looking
it
at.
says it sold out last year,
Okay, so
So
it's not
it's-
open yet for this year and
No.
stuff. Okay,
because that's not until March.
yeah. And they just opened the father-daughter dance registration, right?
Right.
Didn't want to miss my ticket.
I asked them before the meeting, but you know what I figured out? It says Mother Son Superhero Party will be March 9th, 2017. And then it says the event sold out. So I
Yeah.
get it now.
Okay,
Well, you're just worrying us.
yes. I was like, oh no, I missed this. Usually
Right.
it's really well advertised, so I was like,
Yeah.
how did I miss it?
I
Okay.
didn't- I thought too.
Any questions for Jeremy? Nope, okay. Guess that's it. Thanks. We'll move on to update of parks.
I've got quite a few updates. Glen Ross Park improvements are going to be starting probably next week or that following week. We're going with Builderscape Incorporated. They were the low bidder and their references all checked out. So the improvements include, they're gonna put a pathway around the park and improve the athletic field. There's a field in the middle, it's full of rocks right now. They're gonna clean that up, put new soil in there. The top's an additive on the top, and then get a grass field, turf field in there because the residents, and let me back up a little bit. We went out to the residents and got all their feedback. These are the items they wanted was the pathway, the landscape buffer, and the athletic field. So those are the top 4 priorities that we're going to try to get done with this year. We also have a NatureWorks grant that we're using alongside of that. So we'll get those items done, and along with the landscape buffer and some grading issues out there. We should be done by the end of November, I would think. So it'll be a good project and much anticipated out there. The Mingo Pool, we're doing some deck work out there right now. We're replacing some concrete. Some of that concrete was getting in really rough shape. We had some negative slopes towards buildings with some water issues around the building. So we're going to get that fixed. And that is ongoing right now. They'll probably start pouring pouring some of that new concrete next year, next couple days, getting ready because we wanted to get it done this fall so we weren't struggling in the spring to get that done. The other thing we're doing out at the pool is caulking the pool. We had a few leaks in the pool this year. Getting that caulked all the way around there, so that'll be a huge improvement, I think, in the pool, and we'll see that this year. And that's something we have to get on to more of a regular basis of doing and taking care of that. I know when it was brought up the Boardman Art Park, I know some of you have been hearing about this. We have the Northwest Neighborhood Association. We've been working with them. They've kind of taken it on, though, mostly. They're working with the schools right now because the school still owns that property. The city's just kind of as a liaison or a advisor, I guess, a little bit on certain items that come up in there. So we've been kind of just staying involved as much as we can, but that is moving forward. They're painting basketball backboards. They're also getting ready to put some exhibits in there, also putting in some trails in there. They've got an agreement, a 2-year agreement with the school that they are going to utilize kind of the middle portion of the field and some of the basketball courts on that park, with the idea that eventually it'll grow and they'll expand and do more out there. So it's kind of an ongoing process that we're kind of involved with, but kind of indirectly. Are there any questions on the Boardman Art Park? I know that's kind of.
Yeah, is there, I know the lacrosse practices there early in the springs. Will they still be able to do that?
They'll still be able to do that. The track will remain there, and we've been keeping Ohio Wesleyan informed of everything that's been going on. We've got contacts there, so kind of keeping everybody on the same page on how things develop. So, at the end of 2 years, I think the school is still not sure what they're going to do with the site moving forward, but everything they're doing now is they understand that in 2 years that things could change and it may not become a park. So that's been out there and everybody's aware of it. Yeah. yeah, I think it'll be some good improvements out there. I know on the 28th, they're going to be doing a lot of improvements on that weekend. It's community, what is that called? The community, I forgot off the top of my head.
Make a difference.
Make a Difference Day. And there's going to be a lot of work going on out there. Some of the other, since we last met, we've gotten some comments on the Bruce Road Trail. I don't know if you're talking about trails, you guys are familiar with we got a lot of comments during our bike plan about a connection between Bruce Road and Pennsylvania Avenue, making that connection. And it shot up on our priority list quite a bit because of all the public comments. So we went out to the public to get some more input and kind of zero in on what they want to see out there. And so we had a public meeting last month. Quite a few residents show up, but the thing that really came across was that this trail is not just a recreational trail, it's a commuter trail. People are going to get from one point to the other. I mean, there's some people that they rely on a data bus to get from that area to the city. That's their only transportation, because otherwise they got to get out on 23, and that's not a really good option. And that's the safety part of it. We've seen a lot of people on 23, so something we're investigating and moving forward with. We've did a Survey Monkey, and we got like over 200 responses on that, which is amazing. It's been very well received, and so I'll get those results, and we'll close that survey down and get those results out to you. You'll see that next board meeting. So we've been moving forward with that. Right now we're kind of in the information gathering stage, so we want to get all the information so we can move forward with some concepts eventually. I was trying to think if there's another trail that we're working right now. Not right now. That's the main one. The Central Avenue improvements from Bueller's to Lexington. That sidewalk has been completed. There's still a few things to do on there. That was a crucial link, and you see people on it right away. I mean, it
looks really
beautiful off it. Yeah. There's still some come on there. So with that going in, I think it's kind of pushing from Lexington onto Houck Road to make that final link. So we're working on that too, meaning the hardest, the most difficult things in this is right away or easements and getting those. So we're moving forward with that because we've already got the plans for from Houck Road to the edge of the city limits. Those plans are done. That project should begin either probably not this year, but probably early next year to finish that on out. So that whole connection will be made along Central. One of the reasons that part has been delayed is there's possibly a segment that may be developed by a developer. So instead of putting our money towards that right now, we may work with them to kind of work that section out. The Ross Street Park, that is, we're having a meeting I mentioned Thursday with the neighborhood, just to kind of, again, get comments from them as we get into designing or some preliminary concepts for the Ross Street Park. We want to make sure that we have the public input and, what items do they want to see, what amenities they want to see in the park. We got some preliminary surveys in during a festival they had out there, and some of the preliminary results were a splash pad. Not a major, you guys think of splash pad, you think when we out of veterans, but there's several varieties of splash pads. Doesn't need to be that elaborate. You can have smaller ones. So that was something they wanted to see. One thing they didn't want to see was a playground, because there's one across the street at the new school. So doesn't necessarily need a playground. So that's the kind of input we're trying to get right now, which was very valuable to us as we go into conceptual design. And along with Ross Street, the plan, I think most of you are aware, the plan is our Parks Department is stationed out of Ross Street right now. We use those buildings from our crews to head out from there. The plan is to bring them over to the Public Works Utility Office once the refuse building has a new home. Our Parks Department will move into their old home. So the buildings that are out there now that's some of the input we want to find out. What do we want to do with those buildings? They want to be demolished. We want to turn that back into parkland. But that move is anticipated about a year from now. We'll probably be looking at moving our Parks Department over there. So we've been also involved in some of the new, with the refuse building and some of the renovation of where the refuse building is now to accommodate our Parks Department. Sorry to keep going on here, but the Oak Grove Cemetery Master Plan, we just are working with a contractor. We've chosen them them to move forward with that plan at this point. So you'll be seeing some updates on that as we go through. That's a much needed policy that we need to help our cemetery operate more efficiently and kind of plan for some of our future areas in that cemetery. So we've got a contractor that we'll be releasing here shortly on that project. Hidden Valley Golf Course, I know this week, I don't know, we invited some of the members of the golf sustainability committee to come out there. They did a balloon test. They're still looking at a possibility of a cell tower location out there. So they did the balloon test. They sent the balloon up on last Thursday, and took pictures around so that they could get the height of that, what it would be, and what it would look like. So they went around to the areas and took pictures once it was up. So if you hear anything about that, that was what was going on out there. So that's all I have right now. So any questions on that?
Speaking of golf, are you looking at getting the committee back together again to kind of do
Yeah,
like
I think
a season
we
recap?
Yeah, just kind of recap and also planning for 2018 a little bit. Some of the things we want to do in 2018 and getting those off. So yeah, I would anticipate maybe coming together again if we do it before the holidays or maybe even right after that. Because some of the things we talked about were some of the games on the range and want to get some of the crews maybe working out over the winter, get some of those items together.
Sure.
Any other questions about park updates? Okay, then Smith Park tree swallows.
I'm going to introduce Mr. Dick Tuttle. He's here tonight. He's you saw the report in your so a lot of you probably don't realize we have a really expert in the tree swallows. Mr. Tuttle's been doing this for a long time, and he's going to kind of go over that report because I can't talk as intelligently as he can, but he has been doing this a long time. We're very fortunate to have him, utilizing our parks and having this information. So I'm going to let him speak. He's still here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't think I was going to be doing this, but yeah, since 1976, I've raised nearly 28,000, and then this year, most of them have been raised in Delaware State Park and the Delaware Wildlife Area, raised 921. And did you all read the report? Okay. And it was very successful. And there's a lot of experimenting going on. I'm still waiting on a heavy snow to see if the boxes can make it through getting hit by snow from snowplows. They may or may not be within the range. I think they probably are. The other thing is that birds don't like noise. And so the boxes that go from Troy Road to the pond are always 100% got birds in them. And then the other ones are still working on it. As far as I know, nobody got killed in traffic. And that sort of thing. They're smart enough to stay away from the vehicles. So, do you have any questions?
Was there any action that needed to be taken, or just an update on it? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The positive thing about this bird species is that they eat flying small insects. Like 99% of their prey is shorter than a centimeter. That's a half of the length of a nickel or a coin. And that includes deer, flies, and mosquitoes. So the adults eat 2,000 a day, and then they feed 6,000 a day to their young once they hatch from eggs. And when you add up the days that nestlings are in there, which can be anywhere from 16 to 24 days, depending on how the temperatures and then the prey items. And it comes out a family for a 45-day period, they claim the box. Each family consumes more than 300,000 flying insects. And then I think I calculated with 12 families that were successful, it was something like 3.6 million insects were consumed. And of course, that includes a lot of mosquitoes. And in high school, I played center field. And when you're out in center field staring at the batter and you got mosquitoes attacking you, it's not good. So hopefully I helped all the athletes and those folks. Unfortunately, there's a daily supply of food coming into the park in the grills of automobiles. And the house sparrows can see the park and everything from suburbia. I think it's a half-mile away. I can see the neighborhoods and everything. So here they come. And so I had to dispatch 39 house sparrows. Now, they're an alien species. They were brought over by the other alien species, Europeans, and released in New York City in 1851. And they were brought to New York because they wanted a bird that would nest in the city. We didn't have any native birds that were doing that commonly, to eat the corn and stuff left by the horses on the streets, because at night the rats would come and get that. The other thing was they established Central Park. So they wanted a bird that would help with the critters that were eating the leaves off the trees in Central Park. And so the sparrows did that. In other words, that's the good thing about them. And then by 1884, they had bred their way to the Mississippi River. And that they had a little help. A lot of people, when they were on the East Coast, would bring sparrows back and release them. So, but the thing of it is, they're misnamed. They're not a true sparrow. They're a weaver finch. And they've got a very thick, sharp bill, more like a cardinal. And they bash in the heads. I'll get a little graphic here. They bash in the heads and the eyes and everything of our native species. The tree swallows, the bluebirds, and you name it. Anybody in that box that they want. And it's quite hideous. And I tell people, one time I had a minister tell me after I had a workshop, he says, I don't know if I could take the life of a sparrow. You know, and I said, well, when you see what they do, you'll know what to do. And the next week, I was in High Banks Park where he volunteered. He came up to me and he grabbed my arm. He says, you were right, Dick, you were right. And he described how he and his 9-year-old daughter went to the bluebird box, and here was the female all, butchered. And they said that they went back to Nature Center, got a sparrow trap and trapped it. And it put a plastic bag over the box and it flew in. And then he went into this tirade about how he, dispatched the bird. It was very graphic. And his little girl was there, smiling. I'm thinking, oh my God. But it was, that's a typical reaction. You hate what threatens what you love. And that's a human reaction that we all have. So anyhow, I hope that nobody's freaking out, but this is what all the bluebird conservationists do, and they're all over. They're standing. And by the way, back to tree swallows, and I'll leave you after this. But in 1935, there were 1936, I think. Yeah, it was 1935. There were tree swallows nesting more in the upper third of Ohio. And I didn't have them until 76. I've had 50 years of raising bluebirds since 68. I tried to get them and tried to get them and tried to get them. And I finally got them in 76 on a farm over on 3B&K Road. And then the next year I had them in Delaware State Park and so on. In 1983, they went into Kentucky. And then I gave a talk in Tennessee where the title was, Are You Ready for Tree Swallows? And described them and how to get them and everything. They like wetlands and stuff. And now they're in the Gulf states. And what they're doing, they're reclaiming where the beavers used to be prior to 400 years ago when, the trapping industry arrived from Europe. So, that they're with us now, they're back, and they're helping us, and we've got to help them with nest boxes. There was no cost involved. I paid for everything. That's my hobby. And everyone should have a hobby that consumes them. This keeps them out of bars and things like that. So, any questions?
Oh,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I got to go home and watch the show on Finding Your Roots.
Oh, there you go.
My roots, 1/8 of me came from Quebec City. The original fur trappers. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good
you.
Okay, we have discussion of the displays at Veteran Memorial Plaza.
So I think we briefly touched on this at our last meeting. We've encountered, it hasn't been necessarily a problem, but since the Veterans Memorial Plaza's gone in, we've gotten a lot of, not a lot, but displays periodically, some wreaths, some memorabilia placed out there. And it hasn't, we just haven't, it's a sensitive area, so we wanted to make sure we had a policy in place that would address that when something was there too long, or if, it became unsightly or something, that we could, let people know that this is how we will, handle this. And so we did some research and just looked at, especially some national or federal monuments and, what they do as far as, handling these situations and have this policy in front of you. We don't, I guess I'm more interested in your comments because it's relatively new. We just passed it out tonight and see if you had any additions or, subtractions of it. But this would allow us to basically make sure that we can maintain the integrity of the site. It doesn't get piled up with debris. We don't upset people unnecessarily, but we have a something in place because I know the Y gets questions out there, and if we have something in place, it will allow us to maintain that facility a little bit better, I think. So, and if it's something you guys want to take a look at and we bring back next month, we can do that too, since it's relatively new to you here.
Anybody have any questions about it, or you want to take time to read it?
I think my first question is, how is it going to be communicated? Because that's going to be the.
I know I'd rather not post it on the site 'cause I don't want to, sign litter everywhere, but, maybe we can communicate on the website. I know the Y gets a lot of questions. If they had a piece of paper that, they could pass out if someone comes in and asks a question about it, you could pass that out. But also I think on our website, and maybe we post something temporarily out there, since it's relatively new so that people can understand, how we handle things out there.
I would do something, even if we don't pass this policy this evening, I think we should have something in place for Veterans Day.
Oh.
Only because that's coming up in
November.
a few short weeks, at least before we meet again.
Yeah.
Up to this point, we've just kind of looked the other way when there's been stuff out there because we don't have a policy in place.
Yeah.
Has it been removed at some point though?
Yeah.
It just.
Yeah, and like I said, it
Have you
hasn't.
gotten any
This isn't
pushback on it or anything?
No, we have not got a lot of pushback. I mean, we just wanted to be able to address it if we did, and had something in place. But
I mean, reading through it, I don't see if it's in line with what typical memorials do. Nothing jumped out to me that I would question.
And how long are things left out there?
it basically till it becomes unsightly. A lot of times it's artificial wreaths, those can last quite a while. See in that policy, there's a timeline where that we kind of want them out there, and I think that's Veterans Day is probably they really focused on Easter and the holiday season when people want to put memorials out there, but Veterans Day might be another one that we add to it. But and I don't want to blow this thing up bigger than it is because it really isn't a huge issue out there, but it's just kind of something we wanted to kind of get in front of, I think, a little bit.
The only question I had, the only thing that stood out to me was the stuff that's not allowed was the first one, which is flags. Are there any thoughts behind that, or has there been stuff out there in the past? Obviously,
have we had any flags out there?
I think so, but I think the concern is them being mistreated or falling on the ground.
Well, and that was my first thought, was proper disposal of once
Yeah.
you're ready to get rid of them.
Well, and I think that's kind of the reason that a lot of places ban, from hanging your own flags, because we don't want people putting their own connection devices to these, and then like Linda said, the flags kind of fall down, and then we have to, it can't be on the ground, so you got to make sure it's up, and then it gets removed more. But that is, once in a while we get a flag out there, right?
There's been a few.
Yeah, I think I guess if we have the flags on the post right now, and I think I would kind of try to steer away from flags out there.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I could just see that maybe being one of the more controversial things as far as somebody wanting to do something to honor, a family member or something.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I could think of, but I don't think it's a bad idea.
I think the only other thing that stood out to me was, what does the city of Delaware consider offensive? Like, that would be my question. I think common sense might not always prevail anymore.
Yeah, I think you'd really have to cross the line. I mean, if it was, like a flag that, had language on it that might not be, appropriate, because, there's a lot of kids that come through there.
I just think that I would be prepared for that question. And like you said, this probably is not even a big issue. I just thought, well, what do you think?
I know that
versus what I think.
that's hard to define, but hopefully we wouldn't have to cross that one. I mean, I think, being the nature of this memorial that, people wouldn't, but, can't say that.
Any other feedback? I mean, is it something that everyone's comfortable moving forward with, or do you need to look at it and talk about it at the next meeting?
This together from other policies that are out
I
there.
did.
I figured
Yes.
as much.
Yeah, I didn't invent this new. And there's not a lot of policies out there, and most of them are from national monuments, and just kind of tailor it from for our use.
Are you okay with it?
I like it.
Okay. We're okay with it. Do we need to do anything about that?
We probably should make a motion to adopt it.
Okay, can I have a motion to adopt the floral grounds policy for the Veterans Memorial?
So
I second.
Can you?
Miss Ashley?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Bricker?
Yes.
Miss Cunningham?
Yes.
Mr. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Miss Thompson?
Yes.
Miss McWinney?
Yes.
Councilman Browning?
Abstain.
Vice Chairwoman Hibinger?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Lush?
Yes. Okay, so then we move on to the tree dedication policy.
Yes, this is something brand new. So this has, to me, this is something that is going to be a long-term. And we I think this year, how many tree dedications have we had this year, Linda?
I believe 3.
3, which is a little bit higher, quite a bit higher than normal, really.
Usually only have about 1.
One a year. So I guess the point is, I guess, looking at this and how we want to proceed and kind of setting up another policy on tree dedication, how we handle these in the future, because 20 years from now or 30 years from now, there could be hundreds of them out in the parks, and is that the route we want to go? Do we want to try to do something consistent, something that we can handle and maintain and sustain? So what I want to do is try to expose you to a lot of different varieties of them to kind of get your thoughts on what you like, what you don't like, how you think we should proceed. And I did give you some recommendations at the end, but I kind of wanted you to look through everything and kind of develop your own there. But part of it is we need to give you our opinion also. So just, I guess, opening it up and just seeing what your thoughts are, and this is something, this is new, so it probably we'll kind of get some opinions in and just kind of tailor it from there, I guess. Any comments?
We can tell them what we do now.
Yeah.
Trees donated, we planted in a park, and then we put a wooden block in, and the plaque goes on the block. So it's going to be like this plaque here is what we've done up to this point.
How's that service? Has that been good, well received?
Yeah, like I said, we've done 1 or 2 a year, and this year we had I've done 3 this year. We will have done by the end of the year when we plant the last fall trees.
Are they doing in memory and in honor of, or just?
2 of them that I'm doing now are in memory of, and another was that was a donation from Emergency Plumbing for their years of service in Delaware. They donated a tree. When Shade Tree and every spring plants a tree, and one year we did a dedication tree for the contracted forester that used to work for the city. And we put it up at Hayes High School because he lives right on Euclid Avenue. So it was in honor of him for his years of service to the city too.
So how does one apply for some, or what do they do in order to?
There's a lot of times Linda just takes the information right now. So, part of this, we'd put together a form that would have all the information on there. And then once we figure out, what our standard is going to be, but there, we put our form on that. Do we have a form right now, Linda? No. So basically, they give the information to Linda, and she gets with the arborist, and then, yeah.
We did do a dedication tree to Councilman DeGenova last year too, that we planted at the Y when we dedicated the road.
So what is your recommendation?
Well, my biggest concern is the vandalism that would be associated with several of the models, like the tree hugger brand that sits on a tree. And, in our locations in an urban setting, that I could see as a kind of a long-term maintenance. We'd have to keep track of where those are, make sure they're there, because, we might go a month and realize, oh, there's one missing there, or they might, the family might come back and say, oh, you've lost that, or, so that is a difficult, and it's not bad now, but looking down the road 20 years from now, there could be, like I said, hundreds of these out there, and keeping track of all these is going to be a responsibility. So I guess I would like to see something more like the Tree of Life idea. And the location I'm not sure of, but that's very expandable. It still honors people because people really want that name and that plaque out there somewhere. I think that's a good alternative. If we did do some type of plaque out there, I think it would be the bronze cast plaque. I think that's more durable. We could attach it a little bit more. And then also if we did do plaque, I think, adding on to the tree name or something so that there is that education aspect of it, that it can be, and that brings more people to read it too, so that they can see and maybe, actually learn some out there too. So I guess those are the things. I guess the Tree of Life is something I like. The location of that I'm not sure of yet. But and the other thing with that is we could take, there's plenty of room. You can keep adding on to this Tree of Life, or the tree, it just keeps growing. So you can add plaques to it, and it's really simple, and it's effective too. And if it's in a prominent location where it can be seen, and and to add to that, the certificate, giving it to people, letting them know, this tree was planted in their honor and where it's at. But yes.
So the Tree of Life, somewhere indoors, there'll be this.
Yeah, they can be indoors and outdoors.
Okay, but there would also be a tree linked to that?
Yes.
Yes.
But
if that tree wouldn't have any kind of marker on it?
No, no be marker on it, but
it would be a lot easier to maintain and
correct. Yeah.
So someone could come and see the Tree of Life, and there's the name, and they would have a map and say, this map's going to show them where their tree is.
Exactly. I think that would be something we look at doing, so that they could actually notice that tree out there and, have that to honor
I think
too.
that really is a good idea.
Any questions? What would you like us to do for next steps on this? Do we-
Well, I'd like to take it to the Shade Tree Commission too, just kind of get their input on it also.
Look it over for the next
Yeah,
meeting?
look it over, and I guess, I think maybe next time I can, once we get the, kind of input, I can start putting something together, and then we can kind of work on that from there.
Sounds good. Any other questions about that?
I have a question. So if you went with the Tree of Life, would you remove all the plaques from all the trees around here?
That's a very good question. I don't know if we could do that. That would be, because we'd have to reach out, I think, to all the plaques at this point, and that would probably be difficult. I'm sorry?
How many do we have right now?
We don't even know, I don't think. I don't think we have an accurate number of those.
Like dozens or hundreds?
I would say dozens.
Yeah. That would probably be difficult to do.
And some of those plaques, the individuals paid for them, some of them the city has paid for.
Mhm.
So,
The other thing with the Tree of Life is there should be different levels associated with that, pretty easy too. So, yeah, that's a very good point, and I don't think we'd probably try to remove any of those.
Any others? Okay, we'll move on to the dog park closure.
So we discussed this, I think, a little bit last time, and again, this is it kind of allows us to allow that turf to kind of recover a little bit more, allows us to fertilize it. We can't fertilize it and let dogs on it right away. We kind of need a rain to hit it. But it also, I think more importantly, that time of year, it's so wet, the dogs can get in there and tear that thing up in a day. I mean, it literally can be half a day and it's torn up with the moisture. So this is something it's not the only city that does it this way. So we kind of wanted to propose this, and hopefully, because the other thing is we last year or I guess this year we were opening, closing, and it's kind of confusing. So we wanted to set a certain period that it would be closed and let people know early enough.
Yeah, and I've used the dog park, and I've also used the dog park at Alum Creek, and our dog park is so much nicer. You know, the one at Alum Creek is all torn up, and very little grass, and ours just really is a nice park. So it makes a lot of sense. And there's also closures above and beyond this if it's a really wet time period. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but with this time period, we can kind of let people know way in advance that this will be closed. And those times, once we usually get to June, we're pretty safe because it's dry enough and the moisture goes away fast enough. But we had some really big issues this spring when we get some of those warm days, but yet the ground's still wet. And I mean, in one day it turned to mush.
That was about a month ago, and it's really nice. It's really good. Great shape.
Yeah, I think our use is growing, so I think we still may have to look at some alternatives, maybe adding a field in the future, but as our use grows. But for now, I think we're keeping up with it.
Maybe that would be something in the future too, just have more than one area so that you can rotate.
Yes.
Just like you'd be if you were growing crops.
I think we definitely want to do something like that because that's one way you can just take one field off rotation. And, in the spring, what we did one time was we put both dogs in one side. That didn't work out the best because it's just hard. Dog owners know that. And so if we had that one field we could take out of rotation, I think that'll be something in the future we'll anticipate.
We could still have a time of closure though to avoid wet season damage.
Yep, I think so.
Do you need any action from us then on that?
I think just if anyone has any issues or questions on that, we'll start that soon and move forward with that.
Okay, then we'll just move on to staff comments.
Nothing to add. We're still looking at shelter rentals online, hopefully starting that next year. We're looking at a few companies that can do that for us, getting the software. And I know last time we talked about Ironman updates, so we looked into that, and so the registrants was about 2,000 people, which was down a little bit, but not a significant number. And then our participants were down a little bit. It was down to 1,900. What was up was our volunteers. We're up to 1,300 people on volunteers, which is high. So, the trend was down, but, as Elaine was saying earlier, typically on the second year of an Ironman in the city, it goes way down. It kind of really drops off. That was kind of the surprising thing in ours is we didn't see that huge drop off. It was pretty steady. I mean, our numbers dropped a little bit, but and I think because of that, we're looking at extending that contract, and they're going to explore that now. But did I miss anything, Elaine? Anything to add to that? Elaine's kind of knows a little bit more too.
Just that on Ironman standards, it was extremely successful. We got a lot of great feedback. We got some feedback from citizens on maybe ways we could improve some issues, but obviously when you hold a race that size in that many different locations, it's never perfect. And as Ted mentioned, they were looking to negotiate. It's not a done deal or any way form, but could talk with the city about possibly doing 3 more years. We have 1 more year in our contract as is, and to see where we can do with the next. So,
is there anyone from Ohio Wesleyan involved in that still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they.
Because I know Dustin was really involved, but I didn't know who was involved when he left.
I cannot remember one of the names.
It was Mike.
Do we?
Right, but you also had, I believe,
The cross-country coach is pretty involved. Chris Bowie.
Oh, that's track.
That is track. But doesn't he help with cross-country too? Okay.
Just want to make sure. Because I knew, like I said, Dustin was involved.
Yeah. And I think after the new AD came, I think Mike turned it over to him.
He sure did.
So I would imagine that'll be the first person, since I don't believe they've replaced Dustin.
They have not, but they will be. So that's something to keep in mind too.
And I want to say that you had somebody there from your security.
Probably.
I think Bob Wood came to some of the meetings. Oh,
Just know that
Kathy.
at some point, the
Kathy.
information about facility use is getting relayed to the people that use the facility extremely late. And I don't know where that hiccup is, but I know it's causing frustration and it makes it look like there's not communication when I know there probably is. So the better we can get information across to our department, like involving our new athletic director directly, would be huge. And I think he'll jump right on board with that.
Okay.
Well, I know Ohio Wesleyan involved in some of the lodging too, right, this year? Weren't some of the athletes staying in some of the dorms there too? And I think that helped out tremendously too.
And I think it's a great idea. I think we should be extremely involved.
Mhm.
Just, I think moving forward, if we're looking for more contracts and the more communication we can get directly, the better we're going to be.
Right.
Because I think you guys are doing everything right. It's just not getting filtered properly.
Yeah, and we overcome some growing pains, I think, in the first few years, along with some of the business owners. I think another question was, how did they do? And I think they embraced it a lot better. Like Linda was talking earlier, the first year they didn't know what to expect, what kind of food to offer. I think the second year they were on it, I think, a little bit better, and they did better.
They did a lot more pick it up and go, carry it out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can tell you from being involved on the Facebook pages for this coming year, there's probably 35 new people, and I mean new registrants to Ironman, and have picked Ohio specifically. So some area coaches that I'm friends with are pretty surprised at that, just because they've been involved more years than I have, and usually, as you said, it dies off, and it's definitely not.
Yeah.
We heard a lot of great feedback for our city. It's a great opportunity, but every year is a learning experience. Just like the first year, having really bad weather come through, so learning experience on how to handle it. So you just never know sometimes until the event how we're gonna wing it, but it somehow all pulls together.
Great. Any additional staff comments?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, we'll move on to any member comments. Anybody? Oh, we have someone who.
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure. Does she need to come up?
Yep. No. We have to have your name. Well, you need to be able to pick it up on the recorder.
Okay.
And then if you can.
My name is Phyllis Messer. My address is 315 Morgan Court, and I live in Delaware. As you can tell, I'm a pickleball player. And we're concerned about something that is going on at the Y. We have a lot of people playing there. We don't have marked courts. I have addressed this, and the only comment I get is no. Well, if you have marked courts, you can have tournaments. Again, the tournament play comes in as a factor here. It means more people that we've had people say, I don't want to play at the Y because the courts aren't marked. We can't tell where our in and out of bound lines are. It's imaginary. I have been appointed by one of the Y people to head up the people that play at the Y. And this is the biggest comment I get is, why can't we have marked lines? I would really like this addressed. And that's all I have to say.
You're talking inside, correct?
Inside, yeah. If we have it inside, we have a gymnasium there that we can hold tournaments. Marysville has them, Marion has them. They're all marked courts. Ours are imaginary.
Okay. So Jeremy.
And
was
Jeremy
here
has
last-
been addressed, and I
Okay.
have talked to him.
Okay.
And I asked him why, and he says, no.
Okay.
And I like Jeremy. I'm not against Jeremy, but he has to give me a reason, and we haven't gotten a reason yet.
So Ted,
Yeah.
we'll follow up with them.
If we were to mark the lines there, what would be the ideal, like 2 courts, 1 court,
3.
3 courts?
Yeah, and this is another thing. The Y furnished years ago when we started playing 3 nets. But they put them out in an area where, bless their little hearts, kids could climb on them. So then they broke down 2 nets, and we asked for more nets, and it was always, we don't have it in the budget. So the seniors went together and bought 2 nets for the Y. Well, the 3rd net that the Y had purchased years ago finally got trampled out. And we asked again, could we get another net? Because on Wednesdays, we get enough people there to run 3 nets with still people waiting to come on to play. During the winter, it gets worse because you can't play outside. So with that in mind, I think that we could have tournaments if we could get the lines marked. If you have tournaments here in the city of Delaware, why not put them in the Y in the wintertime and keep this thing going?
Okay, we will have it addressed with Jeremy. I'm looking at Ted. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I don't speak on behalf of Jeremy or the Y, but just to at least give you a little insight. Think of a basketball court like an ice hockey rink. The lines aren't painted on top. So it's very costly. Most gyms will just put another fresh coat of glaze on top, which just kind of makes things shinier and prettier. For them to remove that glaze and repaint all lines is extremely costly. So my only thought is maybe that's what it has a lot to do, whether the courts aren't due in that cycle, just because of how new the Y is, because that will typically last for a long period of time. My only thought.
Last time that they refinished the floors, we said, can you put lines down?
Right, but
They said no.
when they refinish the floors, they typically don't strip it down to the bare wood. They just put another layer on. They could, but it triples, quadruples the cost. So
Yeah,
that's,
but you're going to get that cost back.
and understand, I'm just trying to give you maybe an insight of where he's coming from. Just because they don't have the funds to do it, that would be my guess.
Then why can't they say, we can't do it because it's cost prohibitive, instead of just no? That's not an answer,
Sure.
okay? That's all I want to say. Goodbye.
Yeah, we'll listen to that.
Any board member comments? Okay.
I have a
can
question. I'm sorry. It'll be quick.
So close.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get in trouble if I go back and say I didn't ask it. I know nothing about crew, rowing, boats, shells, but we have it. Ohio Wesleyan just added it, and I was asked to propose, if anyone has an idea of where we could put boats in water and or build a house for the boats that will go in the water, with your knowledge of the city, that would be great. We do have some ideas. I didn't understand where they were explaining, but if anyone has any ideas about where that might happen, feel free to let me know. Because we're working on that.
Where they would actually participate, where they would
Where they would
practice?
practice, where they could put boats in, and then where, based on where they're putting them in, they can build a boathouse to house the boats, so we don't have to transport them every time we practice. I believe they're looking to begin competition next year.
Do you know where they row?
They don't currently.
The one place I know of is the Scioto,
Mhm.
which is where Ohio State's boathouse is and everything else is. I don't know if that's where every high school in Central Ohio rows.
Can you do anything at Delaware State Park?
I was gonna say, can it be on the lake? So we've had candidates on campus, and I was educated in that process, and they know a lot about how this works, and there's a lot that goes into current, wind, length.
Yes.
And I don't have the answers to those questions, but things to think about.
Yeah.
I was asked to pose a question I don't know the answer to, or even how to guide the answer, but I'm asking.
It's on the record. It's on the record.
I'm gonna go to work tomorrow.
I don't think it does either. I think if I were you and in your position, I would go back and say, can we connect with, because I know Dublin Kaufman has a team and Ohio State, because I've been to their events on the Scioto, and I would say, hey, can we piggyback on what they're doing?
They're trying to find something that's closer, that's not, they want something that's gonna draw recruits and be ours. And so I think obviously there's only so much water in Ohio that people can use, and there's only so much rowable water. But I think they're looking, there was some site they discussed that was within like 12 minutes of campus, but it's very remote, and it would require like tree removal and city approval and things like that. So we might be talking about that soon. I don't know.
Has anyone talked to West River Rowing Club?
Yes.
about that?
Both candidates we had on campus have a lot of ties to Ohio, even though neither one of them are coaching here currently. And they seem to be in the loop with a lot of those things. They're looking for something uniquely Ohio Wesleyan to call our own. I think that's where the little bit of a glitch is, since there's limited water out there. Duty done.
It's officially on the record. Any other comments? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned at 8:20.
I'm just curious, would you know where that